Welcome back to JR Pro Shop Vids, everyone. Jungle here with the Barco. So today we'll be talking about the Rule of 31 Part 2. In the first video, Rule of 31, we established where our breakpoint should be in relation to how long the pattern is. And today we'll be talking about what ball you should probably be using and why.
So if you missed Part 1, you can find the link to it right up here.
Alright, so today on the lanes we got Jimu and Simu, two completely different styles. And we're going to see what type of balls they'll be using on short, medium, and long. All right, Barks, what's the short pattern, and what kind of balls do you think Jimu and Simu will be using on the short pattern?
So we're on 37 feet Broadway. For Jimu, I think we're going to see him throw a lot of urethane. With his high rev rate, he has a really hard time controlling reactive balls on short patterns. So for urethane, he's going to go with his trusty pitch black, and for a smoother reactive ball, he's going to throw his physics with a little bit of surface. And for Simu, he's going to try and play the gutter with a pitch black with urethane ball. If that doesn't work, he's got a big tank he can go to, like a proton physics. So for Simu, a pitch black is going to be a really smooth and predictable bowling ball, but it may not be enough depending on the type of pattern he's on. So if he needs to ball up to something stronger, a proton physics is going to be very good for him. And it's going to be a good option for him because it's going to roll early and cover a few more boards and be very smooth as well.
All right, let's go see how it looks.
One and done, baby!
All right, the boys are back from the lanes. What did you see out there, Jordan?
All right, so Jimu went first. We saw him throw the pitch black, looked amazing. Ton of rev rate, so he makes that ball really corner down lane and very predictable. Threw 2 strikes immediately, and then he threw his physics, which is his other strong, smooth bowling ball, and it was just too many boards. He had to get too far left, and it was really hard to control that shape off the back end, even though that's one of his smoother bowling balls as well. So for a guy like Jimu, two-handed, lots of rev rate, 535 as we just measured in our previous video, he's gonna have to stick with urethane a lot of times on the short pattern. As for someone like Simu on the short pattern, he has a couple different options here because of his lower rev rate. Pitch black looked awesome, going up the boards, right up 6 there, right through the tape, through the pins really well. And then he moved in with the proton physics really early and really smooth, and forced his feet a little bit further left, but still looked really good. Started up in the mid lane really well, really smooth transition through the oil to the back end, and went through the pins really well as well. So Simu says if he was gonna bowl for score on the short pattern, he used the proton physics. A little bit more room for error because he can get it to the right a little bit and it will recover for him where the pitch black won't. All right, next up we got the long pattern. Barks, predictions?
I think it's going to be a little bit of the opposite from what we saw on the short. Where Simu had more options on the short, I think Jimu is really going to shine on the long. So on longer patterns, unlike the short, you want the ball going a little bit further down the lane before it changes direction, storing a little bit more energy. For that reason, I think the balls that are going to be good for someone like Jimu be something like his Axiom and his Parallax. So because of the length of the pattern, there's not many dry boards at the end of it. We need a ball that's going to change direction a little bit quicker. So for that reason, balls like an Axiom or a Parallax are going to be really good for Jimmu. Balls that get down the lane a little bit easier and change direction a little bit harder. And of course, they do need to be a little bit stronger. So for Simu, with his lower rev rate, he needs much stronger bowling balls. A strong can be a relative term. For long patterns, we need balls that are stronger down lane versus in the fronts. So for this reason, he's not going to throw the proton physics. It hooks a little bit too early and doesn't have any energy left when it hits the pins. So he'll be throwing his Omega Crux with a little bit of surface on it, and also his new Parallax Effect, a little bit of a shinier option for him. So he'll have a couple of different options to get down the lane a bit further and corner a little bit harder. So let's see how that looks. Good. What?
Close to the tape. I love that ball. That ball is good.
So question time. All of you watching today, what's your favorite pattern length? Is it short, long, medium? Let us know in the comments below. What did you see from our boys this time?
So first up was Jimmu. He started with the Axiom, and he was able to play a little bit straighter towards the break point there at 13, and the ball looked really good. He missed a couple times a little bit right, and it recovered and hit the tape a couple times. Everything hit the pocket, really good carry. And then he switched over to his Parallax, which is another option for him on the long. The Parallax looked really good as well. So on fresh long patterns, Jimmu would probably prefer the Axiom. It's a little bit more controllable, and he's able to play a little bit further right. And as the day goes on, he'll have to move left, and therefore the Parallax will be really good after a few games of play on the longer patterns. And for Simu, started with the Omega Crux with a little bit of surface, 2000. He was playing a really direct line right up 13, and the ball went through the pins really well. He missed a little bit right, a little bit left, and it was still good. Hit the pocket, a little bit of air room there, so that was really good. That's what we want to see, right? And then Simu switched over to the Parallax Effect, which is a much stronger down lane motion just because there's a little bit less surface, comes polished, and I drilled it to hook a little bit harder off the back end for him, so he has that extra option. So if Simu were to bowl for score on the longer pattern, he would use the Parallax Effect. A little bit more down lane reaction. His feet had to be a little bit further left, and he trusted that it would hook and recover more than the Omega Crux. Let's go check out the boys on the medium. Barks, predictions?
So on a medium condition, you're going to want to gravitate towards something like a symmetric solid, something a little bit more predictable and controllable, but can still handle a fair amount of oil. For Jimmu, he's going to throw his IQ Tour Edition and his High Road Max. For him, his IQ is really smooth and predictable, and it's a controllable amount of hook for him. If he needs a little bit stronger ball, he can ball up to a High Road Max. So these two balls are right in the middle of Jimmu's bag. If he needs a little less hook, he can ball down to something like a Pitch Black and play a little straighter. If he needs more ball, he can ball up to his Axiom or his Parallax. And for Simu, it's kind of more of the same. He's going to start with his Idol, which is, for him, smooth and predictable, can handle the oil. And if he needs a little bit more shape down lane, he has an IQ Nano Pearl. So his Idol is right in the middle of his bag. So medium length and medium response to friction. If he needs to ball down, he has his IQ Tour Nano to go to, but if he needs to ball up, he has a lot of options for that as well. Something like an Omega Crux or his Parallax Effect. With that said, let's send him to the lanes and see how they do.
want
said it
me?
to you. I said it to you last time. All right, so we're back from the lanes. What did you see out there, Jordan?
Well, we first started with Jimu. He started with his High Road Max, and that ball is pretty strong, so he had to play pretty far left in order to hit the pocket, and it was a little sharp off the back end as well. He did manage to throw a few strikes, but as you can see, the shape probably isn't ideal for high scores. And then he went to his IQ Tour, the Solid, and that looked really good. Slightly less hook potential. He was able to move his feet further right and hit the break point more consistently with a little bit smoother shape. And I think if Jimu were to bowl for score, he would definitely start with the IQ Tour. And also a little plug-in, if Jimu needed something that hooked a little bit less, a little bit smoother, he has the rev rate where he could use a pitch black or a fast pitch or something like that on medium conditions. So for someone like Jimu, two-handed, a lot of rev rate, he's gonna stick with like the IQ Tours, something mid-range or lower for like medium patterns. And if he can, if the ball's hooking a lot, he can go to a fast pitch or a pitch black as well on the medium conditions. And then we saw Simu bowl. He started with his Idol, Old Faithful Idol. Really good ball reaction, went through the pins really well. So I think if Simu were to bowl for score, he would start with that. And then he went down to his IQ Nano Pearl. It just seemed to go down the lane a little too far and corner a little bit too hard for the fresh. So as you can see, the 7-pin and the 10-pin kind of went late a couple times. And that's what you're gonna see when the ball starts to hook a little bit late. So the IQ Nano Pearl would probably be really good in a couple of games after there's a little bit of traffic, drying up the lanes a little bit. But for now, Mr. Idol, can't go wrong with that guy. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully the Rule of 31 and the Rule of 31 Part 2 here, which bowling balls to use, really helps you on what to use on different pattern lengths and what type of bowling balls would probably be best to start with. So as you can see, the boys here, they each bowled with 2 different bowling balls on each pattern. Those 6 bowling balls are their arsenals, their 6-ball arsenals. So that's exactly why it's extremely important to have a good 6-ball bag with 6 distinct shapes, so that no matter what pattern length you come across, you got something that'll work.
So keep in mind, this is just a rule of thumb. This is just a good starting point. Depending on where you bowl and the types of conditions you see, you may have to play in different spots to find success and use different balls than the types that we showed you here today. But most of the time, you're going to be pretty close in following this rule. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and stay tuned for our next video. We have an interesting experiment coming up.
With Jimu.